Good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wine of Spain tasting. We're just setting up the PowerPoint, making sure we've got everything ready. So we'll just be a couple of minutes, and we usually wait a couple of minutes for everyone to get involved as well. So yeah, hope everyone is good and looking forward to this. I think we've got some fantastic wines on tonight. Yeah, looking forward to some. And we have got Mike with us today as well from Moreno Wines, who is going to take us through them all. And I believe we will also have a special guest on for one of the wines as well, which will be great. So yeah, looking forward to having that. Yeah. I've got all my wines out of the fridge, just so I've got them to hand. I would recommend with the second one, with the white Rioja and the sherry, not to leave them in the fridge too long. Actually, the sherry you could probably leave in the fridge, but the Akemi, if you can get that out as well, just so it warms up a little bit, so it's not too cold, because we don't want it to be too cold as well. Yeah, and we've got a comment from James or my sister. Hello. So hello, everybody. Yeah, we'll just wait a few moments to make sure everyone's settled down and got involved. So yeah, we've got first wine tasting actually.
Oh yeah, it's just spirits so far.
We've only done spirits so far. So hopefully the wines got to everyone okay. I think they did. I think most people collected them, so that's pretty good. Yeah, it'd be good to see how they've gone, what people think of them. So yeah.
Good. We're nearly in there now. It's one click away anyway.
Usually
slow.
to get it started. Yeah. It's technology, isn't it? It's great sometimes.
Yeah, I'd say everyone feel free to pour the first glass if they like, and
so
we'll talk you through it very shortly.
If you do have any questions at all, please feel free to pop them in the comment box and ask any questions away. If you don't want to make a YouTube account, but you do want to ask any questions, I've got the emails here as well. So you can always get in touch via email or even Facebook as well, Facebook Messenger, and we can pop any questions forward. I'm currently in the forward shop, which is the new one. So this is why it looks all nice, and it's quite calm and quiet in here, which is nice. So yeah. Lovely. Should be nice and warm. Yes. So the first wine we're going to start with is the Adara. So if you want to pour any of that and get yourself ready a glass, I've got the full bottle here, but it's number one, that one. Yeah. I'm going to pull that down. And the idea behind this tasting was, obviously, we've not been able to go to Spain, or not many of us have been able to get to Spain this year. And those that managed to get away have been pretty lucky to be able to. So we're kind of thinking we'll go on a virtual tour of Spain instead.
And, just about got in there in January for a couple of days, but
did you?
Lucky enough.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, I know there's a few people that managed to get away and managed to sneak away and get some sunshine, but we've had a pretty good summer, so we can't complain, really, can we? But yeah.
Just to interrupt, it says I'm entering the broadcast studio, so hopefully that'll come up on your end in a sec, and then we'll be there.
Just wait for it to come up.
It'll be very slow.
Anyone that did one of the rum tastings a while back in July, we had a bit of an issue with the internet where I came up to this new shop here in Forward, tried to log on, and the internet was down, so I had about 20 minutes to rush back down to Charavel shop and get loaded up. So
it's a nightmare, isn't it? It's the internet.
Yeah.
Never,
it is, yeah.
never when you want to.
Yeah. Not got anything come up yet, Mike.
Okay. I tell you what. Do you want to load it up on your side, and if you've got the two screens, and then
Okie dokie.
you might just have to just kind of wing it when you click and stuff, and
Yes.
I'm sure we'll muddle through. Brilliant.
There we go.
Okay, doke.
There we go. That was slightly confusing then. I was like, which one am I on?
Brilliant. Yeah, I've stole your picture for the front there. So yeah, we've got we've got five wines this evening, and I'll just talk a little bit about Spain as well, a bit about history, where it is now. Obviously, there's hundreds and hundreds of wines coming out from Spain, but we've had to narrow it down to keep it under 12 hours of it as a tasting. But we think we've chosen. I've just got them here. I'm looking over there. 5 very interesting wines tonight. Some classic regions, some very, very new regions, probably that you've not heard of before. So as you can see there, Spain isn't just Rioja. It isn't just Cava or Sherry. Those kind of well-known names. There's wines coming from all over Spain. It's not just red wines either, although it's so well known for that. We've got really crisp, fresh whites coming up from the northwest, from green Spain, as they call it. And is that me logging on? Nope. I'm going to give up on that laptop. Yeah, and we've got raising the quality of things like Cava as well, because it's a bit of a bad rep over time. We've not actually got Cava tonight, but I'll talk a bit about that in a second. So it really is quite a very diverse country, essentially. Yeah. It obviously sits in the shadows of the 2 other European powerhouses, France and Italy, a little bit, but in terms of the rest of the world, I think it's the leader in terms of the amount of different styles of wine that come out of it. So yeah, if you want to just click onto the next slide. It's going to sound like the coronavirus briefings now. So yeah, just Spain a bit of a glance. So I just mentioned France and Italy. France and Italy are the first and second largest, but Spain is easily the third. Fourth largest is America, and it's about half of what Spain produces. So it works out about 6 billion bottles a year that Spain produces, and that accounts for about 6% of the entire world of wine is made in Spain, essentially. And like I said, along with Italy and France, by a long way, the 3 biggest countries in terms of production. Interestingly, Spain is actually the largest country in terms of vineyard area. So in terms of amount of area that has vines on it, Spain is number 1. And that sounds weird because Italy and France produce far more wine, but that is just down to how densely things are planted. It's also down to like lower yields as well,
Yeah.
which is largely down to the fact that there's a lot more drought risk in Spain. It's a lot hotter than and drier even than Italy. So they have to mitigate that by planting a bit further apart. So yeah, it's kind of basic viticulture biology that we all learned in school, really.
Basic WT3 stuff, that stuff I should all know off the top of my head. They
plant them
have a lot of bush vines as well, don't they? They have a lot of like old vines and quite like low to the ground, not what you kind of expect. Where I suppose in France and Italy, you're kind of used to seeing all the like rows of very neat looking vines, and Spain doesn't really have that sort of those sort of vines. They're a lot more kind of I suppose you could say rustic. Is that the right word?
No, absolutely, a little bit more sort of gnarly kind of looking sort of vineyards, not as uniform, as straight. There's I guess quite a few regions. But again, the kind of the bush vines tend to have these. They tend to be older, therefore they tend to have these longer root systems, so they can get water easier as well. So that kind of links back to the risk of the drought kind of issue. Also, Spain had in a lot of areas, not all areas, but had a lot less impact from phylloxera, which was a little tiny louse, for those that don't know, that basically wiped out all of Europe about just well over 100 years ago now. It's sort of turn of the 20th century. Wiped out the entirety of France and Italy, but not all of Spain. Spain still got hit hard, but so there's a lot of very, very old vines around in Spain. Spain is actually the largest exporter of wine as well. There's about 3 billion of its 6 billion bottles will leave the country. Italy's pretty close, but the two of them are a long way ahead. France keep a lot to themselves, believe it or not.
I think we all know that.
Yeah, but Spain still exports more than about more than the USA produces. USA being the fourth largest country, so it's big. It's a big wine country. I think one of the interesting facts about Spain as well, and something you wouldn't immediately associate with it, is it's all very high altitude, and that's all because of that Meseta Central Plain. So you don't really think of it as like a mountainous kind of country, but it's just that the entire country is on this huge, 75% of it is on this huge plain. So like interesting fact that 90% of Spanish vineyards are higher than any vineyard in France. Just because of that central plateau. So and that's, as you can imagine, the higher you go up, the cooler it gets. So if it weren't for that, Spanish viticulture wouldn't really be possible. It'd be too hot, it'd be too dry, just because of how far south it is, and the warmer climates we have in Europe for our latitude. If you want to click on. Just a bit about grape varieties as well. So I've just put a bit of the kind of the most important grapes you see in Spain. So there's both in the red and the white category. There's two that are planted a lot more than any other. A bit more interesting on the red side because it's Tempranillo, and that makes so many great wines. It's important in Rioja, it's important in Ribera del Duero, it's in so many other regions as well. It has about 13 different names as well, so a lot of wines you'll see out there that maybe have a grape you've never heard of. It might well be Tempranillo. They like to make it confusing for us. And on the white side, a grape called Eren is the most planted. Might not be one you've heard of. I've not yet tried one that's blown my socks off, unlike Tempranillo, that's done it many a time. And a lot of it is actually used for brandy making, Eren. And kind of basic table whites as well. Things like that.
I was going to say, I think we've seen it blended a few times, so I don't think we stock anything that's 100% Eren. but we have seen it where it's kind of blended in with other varieties.
Absolutely.
That's probably how we find it in mostly in the UK.
I think it's the same. I don't think I've ever seen a 100% straight one. And like I say, a lot of it ends up in brandy. But then loads of other really brilliant grapes that almost all of them have kind of growing in popularity and notoriety. People have maybe known about Tempranillo for a while now. Thanks to the big names like Rioja and things like that. But interestingly, I didn't realise this to Richard, Bobal is the second most planted grape. So that's great. You tend to see more of a southeast, like UTL Requena. Tends to be like really big, bold, kind of classic Spanish sort of reds. Some really, really good wines come from that. Grenache, Garnacha, probably people have heard that a little bit more. I see quite a bit of that. France is obviously big in Grenache. Monastrell, Graciano. Mencia is an interesting one. That's kind of Spain's answer to Pinot Noir. It's a bit lighter, a bit more elegant. So the best ones can rival like some of the best Burgundies for me. And then some like international varieties as well, like Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot. White side as well. Again, Macabeo has many names, rather like Tempranillo. Comes under the name Viura in Rioja, for example, where it's probably most important. My favourite of all of those, though, on those white lists is Albarino. Hopefully, the good customers of StarmoreBoss have tried a good few Albarinos. One in particular. Fantastic, right? Anyone who likes Sauvignon Blanc, crisp, fresh whites with extra layers going on top of that is perfect wine. And again, you'll notice just on the bottom as well some more quote international varieties, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc. Lots going on in Spain. Lots and lots of different grape varieties, lots of different wine making techniques. It's a really exciting place to be at the moment in terms of wine making. I don't think they're afraid to try new things where very classic regions, your Bordeaux and Burgundies, maybe it's a bit trickier.
I think with Spain as well, like when you think about say Bordeaux and Italy, France and Italy, when you think about the regions like Bordeaux, or you think about things like Chianti and Chianti Classico, they're much stricter on their kind of rules and regulations. Where I think is there only two DOs in Spain, Rioja and Priorat? Which they can be a lot more experimental and not have to fit into quite kind of strict guidance and rules as to what they can and can't make in particular areas.
Definitely, yeah. And there's single wineries in regions that are not known for winemaking. Aren't known for the really high quality stuff anyway. They're just making like insanely good wines, and they can get this huge notoriety and kind of all the plaudits and all the praise and everything like that. And it's just something that wouldn't happen in a lot of the other European countries. Someone wouldn't set a winery up in I don't know. I think like not Normandy in France or something like that, but someone would set it up 100 miles west of Madrid where there's nothing, and they get the rewards for it, I think, for being a bit bolder and a bit more adventurous.
Definitely. Next slide.
We'll try some wine, shall we? That was the last one. About 600 different varieties, but it is it's still dominated by sort of 20 or so. But again, in the 20% that aren't there, there's some seriously interesting stuff as well. For sure.
There we go.
So yeah, as Anna was saying as well, if anyone's got any questions, do pop them in. Don't let me drone on for an hour and a half. That's not good for anyone. So the first one we've got is from a region called Almanza. You've got Snap.
Yeah. Really cool bottle.
It's a great bottle, isn't it? So this is down in the southeast. So we've just got it in purple on that little slide there. So probably not a region come across before. Well done if you have. It's not the most well-known wine region. Certainly these were probably the first wines I tried from this region. So this is, we'll go on to the next slide if I may. Adres Hoover is the wine. It's from a winery called Venta La Vega. Like I say, it's the region's Almanza down in the southeast. This is very, very high altitude, this one. So you'll notice how far south we are there, which usually makes it very difficult to make, well, any wine with any sort of kind of crispness or lightness to it, really. But the fact they are so high mitigates a lot of that. Another kind of technique they use is they'll harvest in the middle of the night, which just retains even more acidity. So they've managed, even in that kind of latitude, to create a really crisp, fresh white wine. So Huvia, by the way, is the name, L-L-U-V-I-A, which means rainfall. Hence the sort of label there as well. And I was just going to show the red in a second as well, but they do a little red partner as well. The two of them go very nicely together. And the red is called Aldea, which means village as well. So cool little labels. Wine we're trying here is as you see, there's 50-50 blend, Sauvignon Blanc and Verdeco. It's a blend you'd probably more see right over the other side of the country in Rueda, to be honest, but they're starting to do quite a bit more of this as well. The two of them go really, really well together. Sauvignon kind of brings all that freshness and citrus, and then the Verdeco just brings this kind of slightly greener tinge and a little bit of tropical fruit. They have a wine consultant here called Raul Perez, and he's kind of like the superstar rock star winemaker of Spain at the moment. So he's everyone wants to work with him. These guys have managed to get him on board. He kind of made his name up in the northwest, actually, with Mencia that we were talking about before, but kind of travels all over the country now for anyone who can afford him. These guys are organic as well. They're vegan and vegetarian friendly. I'll cover that one now because a lot of people ask, what the hell does that mean? It's made from grapes. That is just to do with when a wine's finished fermenting, believe it's not as bright and clear as it appears in your glass, and they have to go through a few kind of filtering processes to make it as bright and clean as you expect as a consumer. And for that, they will use some products derived from animals to help with that process, essentially, and clear out some of the sort of solids that are left in the wine once it's finished fermenting. So that's just that. It is all wine's made from grapes. Bit of a mix with the go on, sorry.
I was going to say, vegan veggie wines can be a bit of a grey area. I was talking to someone the other day about it, and there's wineries that are, or wines that are vegan, and when we label them in store as being vegan or veggie friendly, we mean that there's been nothing used in the wine that it's come from animals, or it doesn't use any animal produce. But there's certain winemaking techniques that they use in Eastern Europe and in places like Georgia, which they do very, very traditional winemaking techniques where they put it in amphora and they line it with beeswax. And there's some vineyards that might use like horses, to go and help them get the grapes. Or there's a wine we've got that it's called Jonty's Duck, that lets ducks out into the vineyards to scare away the pests and things like that. So it's a bit of a grey area in a way. I know that there's a few kind of wineries as well that have restaurants and things, and there's Tillingham Winery in Sussex, and their wines are vegan friendly, and the fact they're not fined or filtered, or that they find with and without animal products, but they raise like animals to use in their restaurant. So in that sense, this to say it is vegan, but it's not at the same time. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one being vegan friendly for friendly wine. Yeah. It's how far do you take it, really?
Yeah, I mean, someone asked me once, so how do they make the glue that sticks the label onto the bottle? Yeah. Well, so it's like, I'm not sure I can even get that answer, to be honest. Yeah.
It's a tricky one, but
yeah, absolutely. As far as when we say they're friendly, we generally mean those fining agents. But absolutely, you can take it so far, can't you? They have a mix of winemaking techniques as well with this one. So the way it's described to me by the guys over there as well, they've kind of got all these like different vessels and pots that are going on. There's a bulk of it that's done in stainless steel to keep that freshness and all the fruit. And then they actually do a little bit in oak as well, with a bit of lees aging. Blend that back in, just all adds to the kind of complexity and the character and that long finish you get with this. So yeah, hopefully everyone's enjoying that. It's been as Moreno, one of our best sellers, alongside Laritas, actually, of the last sort of 6-9 months during lockdown. So it's been enjoyed in many a home over the last 6 months, I can say. How much is this on the shelf, Anna?
$11.95.
Yeah,
so you got really good value for money.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, when it's one of those that you think would be quite kind of simple, straightforward style wine, but now when you mentioned that some of it's done in oak and there's a bit of lees aging, you do get, there is a kind of fuller kind of flavour in there, but without it being like, I know some people don't like Chardonnay, which is a crime, but anyway, like people don't like Chardonnay and they don't like it necessarily because it's got that slightly fuller, like richer, almost buttery style note to it. But this has a nice kind of balance to it. I just think it's really fine.
Yeah, it's only a tiny bit that's done that way as well. This is an unoaked wine for all intents and purposes. This is just like a bit of seasoning, really. Essentially, is the way to look at it with this wine. It's like I say, it's got a red partner in crime as well, and they're both the same price. They say that the white Huvier, which means rainfall, and the red Aldea, which means village, and the red's a 80% Garnacha Tintorera, which isn't Garnacha actually; it's another grape. Confusing world of wine grape. It's more commonly known as Alicante Bouchette, and funny enough, the wine is from Alicante. And that's 80% of the wine, and then it's got 20% Syrah in as well. So that's quite a nice light red, chilled in the summer.
Yeah.
And that there is Raul Perez, the world famous, not just Spanish famous, Raul Perez.
That's quite
it's an incredible beard. I think he might have shaved it off now. Actually, I saw a picture of it. Unless it was a really old picture, but I don't think it was. I showed him without a beard anyway. But it's a hell of a beard.
We had a question that said about what would we suggest sort of pairing with this food wise. I think it's pretty versatile.
Definitely, yeah. As a lot of fresher wines are tend to be, really, really versatile. I wouldn't pair it with anything heavy or too rich. It's not that wine. Something lighter, fresher. There's numerous fish dishes that I think it would go great with. Sort of creamy chicken, things like that as well, pastas, all that kind of thing, really. I think the thing would just be nothing too heavy, nothing too rich, really. And perhaps just not too spicy either. Stay away from that small corner, and yeah, like you say, it's pretty versatile. Goes very well on its own. I can testify it as well, for sure.
But my sister's message said she could imagine drinking it sitting by the pool, so that's her take on it.
Definitely. Haven't tried that yet, but hopefully one day. Yeah, they're a really great pair. So well priced as well. You think about the organics, flavor, it's a great label as well. I think it leaps off the shelf, and
it's lovely. It's really lovely.
Grabs your attention, for sure.
So, number 1. Would you like me to go to the next one?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Our little guest that might be joining us. Well, hopefully he's joining us. I mentioned 8:30 to her, so I thought we'd be on.
That's fine.
On there.
Yes.
But yeah, so wine number 2 is the Akemi White Rioja. There we are, and it is not a sake or a Japanese wine. It is a white wine from Spain. So this is so we are in Rioja, everyone's favorite Spanish wine region. Certainly most well known. Rioja is, again, we've got the little purple bit on the map there, so it's quite far to the north. It's about a 2-hour drive from Madrid, or just over an hour's drive from Bilbao, just up on the north coast there. And yeah, everyone sort of knows Rioja for reds, really, but a lot of people are discovering now there's some incredible white wines as well. Not to mention rosé and even sparkling as well, actually. So yeah, we've got quite a unique one here as well. Next slide. This is Akemi. Like I say, it's a white Rioja. It's made from 100% one grape, Viura, which again is the far most important grape for making white Riojas from. It is actually a clone of Macabeo, probably a slightly superior clone to standard Macabeo. Either that or Rioja are just very good at getting the best out of it. So this is actually a joint project wine between a chef from Rioja by the name of Felix Jimenez. And he is known for his Japanese food, kind of fusion cuisine, things like that. These days he's got a restaurant with a Michelin star as well, actually, where he serves this wine in Logroño, actually, in the heart of Rioja. So he decided, from one of the world's most famous wine regions, I want to make a wine that goes with my food, which is kind of a nice sort of reverse way of looking at it, really. Chefs or people wine list together tend to look at the food first, and then the wine follows. But this is they put the kind of wines to go together with food, but this time they went and made a wine specifically to go with the food, I should say. So we worked with Bodega Santanyan, who are a great Rioja producer in their own right. Good friends of ours at Moreno. And this is what it came up with. So 100% Viura. It's aged for 4 months in French oak. Some of it new, some of it's old. So that's not a huge amount of time. There are some white Riojas out there that are aged for 2 years plus. They're reserves of the white Rioja world, and then go for a lot longer in bottle as well. And that's kind of been seen as traditional white Rioja.
The vintage we've got that we've sent out is a 2017, so it's had 3 years or so. About 2.5-3 years or so in the bottle then.
So there's kind of White Rockers very distinctly made two sort of styles these days. This is very fresh, very zippy, most recent vintage. Again, really versatile food whites. And then what it's been more known for over the years is these really long aged, like orange, dark. I'm thinking Vina Tondonias, things like that. This is, I'd say in the middle, it's closer to the fresher, zippier side for sure, but it's got a bit of oak and it's got a little bit of bottle age. So it's sort of a little bit bringing the best of both worlds together, really. So there's still plenty of fruit there. Hopefully people are finding quite tropical, grapefruity, but you've got this kind of nice creaminess as well. Kind of soft roundness to it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like a sort of like smoky kind of note to it when you first smell it.
Yeah. Coming off
as it opens out, you get much more of the fruit that comes through in it.
Yeah.
But what's quite nice about it is that I think sometimes with Riocas as well, like you when you get kind of Crianthas, or particularly more with the reds, I find that you can get sometimes the oak can really overpower it. So you get kind of a lot of the vanilla sort of flavors, or those like baking spices and like that kind of like coconutty sort of style flavors coming through from it. But for this one, I think that the oak seems to be really quite gentle in it, and it's more about that kind of it's quite. Like on the nose, it's really quite prominent, but when you actually taste it, it doesn't taste really oaky or very kind of full.
Definitely.
There's a comment that says, it tastes expensive, which is
well, hopefully we'll surprise you. It's more expensive than Adoras, but it's not. How much is it on the shelf?
$15.95, so not overly expensive.
It's only five quid more. And just what you say, it's really just well balanced. It's like there's a chef involved. Balancing all those ingredients, the oak together. I've not actually ever tried it with sushi and things like that yet. But if it should be the best wine in the world to go with that sort of food. So,
well, the first place I actually came across this is I used to work in a restaurant in Sheffield called Yorro. Shipping containers, and those that are in Sheffield, it's in shipping containers on Shalesmoor. And I first came across it there. And if you've ever been to Yorro, it has a Japanese, has a lot of Japanese influence, but it's also got kind of a Nordic influence as well. And they used to pair it with a couple of dishes. We'll experiment with pairing it on there, and it worked really well with like some of the sort of spices. Because I think you find in Japanese cuisine the spices are a little bit more delicate. They're not necessarily as earthy as some of the kind of like Indian spices, for example. But no, it worked really well in there. That's where I first had it. And then when I went to StarmoreBoss, there's a few people that said, "Oh, I had this in Yorro. Do you have it in stock?" And then I think when I met Mike at a tasting a few years ago and he had it on the table, I was like, that's the wine. So it's it's good with that though.
Yeah, it's good. It's great wine. It's Kemi translates as beautiful dawn in Japanese. It's a great story as well. That there's not many kind of wines inspired by chefs, and wines literally made to go with a certain type of cuisine, so specific like that. It happens to go with quite a few other things as well. I have tried it with other things. Again, creamy dishes, and this would match up, I think, more to kind of traditional Spanish dishes as well. You could put this with a little bit of spice, like you're saying, paella, and anything with a bit of paprika, a bit of saffron, a bit of chili heat in there. So
nice seafood paella with it would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Two very different whites as well. Got that freshness and that sort of leesy character as well that you got from the Aderas Huvia, and this is just that bit fuller, a bit more tropical, a bit more creamy. So yeah.
Yeah,
So say you might notice I'm not drinking all these wines because I'd have to open the full bottles here, but I am going to join you for one of the reds in a minute. So
one of the reds I'm quite excited for. But yeah, it's we've had words. Sorry, it's been a long time.
Yeah. I know.
But yeah, I think when you said about them being sort of two different wines, the two different sort of styles that you kind of have there. The first one you could have more of an aperitif or things that are kind of lighter, and then this is one that you definitely need something just a little bit heavier for, or it's not, depending on what you sort of like in terms of your wine, it's not necessarily one you sort of sit and sip and just drink through, if that makes sense. There's a couple of wines that, I mean, some people do like that. I am a fan of the fuller sort of style, but I think generally you would sort of have that more as like a food wine, a food friendly wine. Definitely. But
yeah, I'm all up for experimenting with that side of things as well. I don't tend not to prescribe to too strict the rules with food and wine. If you like it, you go for it. If you want to drink big heavy reds with prawns, go for it. You know, you might not find anyone else to share it with you, but if you like it,
I think it's quite a difficult thing, kind of pairing wine and food. And the thing that I think I can find quite difficult is especially when people have sort of recipes that are quite kind of complex, or they've got dishes with lots of different contrasting flavors. Trying to match that with the wine can be quite a challenge.
Definitely, yeah.
But there's certain wines, like I think the Akemi is really good. There's like quite a kind of, when I say a food friendly wine, it's quite versatile in that it will go with different styles of dishes. So it works well with Japanese cuisine, but we can also imagine it with the kind of more traditional Spanish like rustic dishes and tapas and things like that. So it kind of fits into quite a wide range of food pairings, which is good, because it's very difficult to just sort of pinpoint one wine just for one sort of specific food match. And the taste is very subjective as well. So
absolutely, versatile whites, both versatile whites in different ways. For sure.
So
very good.
Move on to the red.
Sounds good. So everyone's got 100 mils, have they, of each?
Yes, 100 mils of each.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully this is a good pace. We'll move on to some red wines. So we've got 2 red wines for you. Moving on to another different region. So this is a wine called Yasso, and it's from a region called Toro. So again, we just got it marked in purple there. So going far more inland here, over towards Portuguese border. It's about an hour's drive, and then you're in Portugal. And this is on the River Douro. There's so many wine regions on this one river, if you like. You got Ribeira del Douro. It then goes through Rueda, Toro, and then it becomes the Douro. It kind of drops an E and gains an O and becomes that's right. Can't work out in my head. Becomes the Douro, and then you're in Port Country, and then goes out into the Atlantic. So there's a lot of very high quality wines that are supported by this one river. And Toro has kind of has grown so much over the last sort of 20-25 years. It sat a bit in the shadow of Ribeira del Douro, which itself sat in a bit in the shadow of Rioja. But I think people are starting to discover Toro wines a little bit more. If we just pop onto the next slide. Just click it. No, you're right. So like I say, so 1990 there was 8 wineries and 2020 there's 62.
Wow.
So it's not far off 2 wineries a year, winery every 6 months, kind of cropping up there. So clearly people have seen the potential in this area. It's had a lot of outside investment as well. Some of the biggest names from Spanish wine have moved in there, including big names from Rebel del Duero and Rioja have chosen to go and set up in Toro to make the best wines they can. So talking about these different names for Tempranillo. So the grape here is known locally and it will be listed on taste notes thing there as Tinta de Toro. That is genetically it is Tempranillo. It's just a slightly different clone. It tends to be a slightly smaller berry and has these thicker skins as well than the Tempranillo that you'd find in Rioja. That if you know about winemaking, that's going to immediately just make this wine exactly the same way. You're going to have a higher tannin, higher color wine, even just doing exactly the same thing to it as you did with the different strain in Rioja. So wines have become known for being really heavy, really deep, really thick. Some alcohol levels have touched upwards of 16%. Yeah, just the amount of sugar those grapes accumulate, sugar turns into alcohol. But they've kind of, that's not really what the market's wanting anymore. So they've kind of changed things up a little bit. Vineyard techniques, winery techniques, things have toned up.
Have they been doing things like picking kind of earlier or
yeah, absolutely. They can a bit of canopy management, keeping the grapes a bit more shaded. They're certainly not worried about kind of pests and fungus and things there. It's way too dry. It's way too arid for anything like that. I was
going to ask about Toro. I am right in thinking that it is slightly lower in altitude than some of the other regions. I know that Rioja is kind of on the foothills of some of the, I can't remember the mountain range, and I think, is it Ribera del Duero it's got like a U shape of mountains sort of around it, but I am right in thinking that Toro is lower in altitude.
It might just be a little bit than Ribera, but it's still considered pretty high. If you it is absolutely massive, that central plateau. It is most of Spain, and it even goes into Port as well. And if you know the Port region, the vineyards in the east are high, and then they drop down right into Porto. So obviously Toro is even east of that.
Okay.
I think what the biggest thing Toro I think has got going for it is just an absolute plethora of really, really old vines. So this is one area where phylloxera never really got to. It was way too sandy. It was way too arid. And they just didn't like that. So they've got some just ridiculously old vines that just produce the most kind of amazing fruit. Their roots are tens of meters long, so even though it's so dry, water just isn't a problem. They can find it.
You sort of tend to find with the older vines that one thing I've kind of learned with my WSET is that when you think of like a plant needing lots of water and nutrients to grow and make, get nice and big, but in terms of actually growing fruit for winemaking, and you don't want them to have a load of water or nutrients, do you? So
no, you need them to struggle a bit, funnily enough. Yeah.
It needs to be put under stress, apparently.
Yeah.
When they make really good fruit.
The right amount of stress. I guess like all of us, we need a little stress to perform the best vine. When it starts focusing on fruit production rather than just foliage and leaves, things like that. But obviously not too much that you kill it. That balance, like everything. Go on, sorry.
the older the vine gets as well, the more kind of concentrated sort of flavors and things like that you end up getting. Is that because the vine kind of doesn't produce this? Does it not photosynthesize as much anymore? Does it kind of get to a point where it just doesn't want to do that as much? Or
yeah, a little bit. It's certainly, yeah, definitely. It's thinking, it's thinking about longevity. It's thinking about being able to, produce more vines and make sure it doesn't run out its lineage. But it's also, it is actually lower yielding as well. So the grapes that are there are they just basically get a lot more attention from what nutrients and extra it produces. Whether that's to make the grapes even more attractive to birds and what have you, to again get them distributed. Who knows? But for whatever reason, these old vines are just producing incredible winemaking grapes. You just get a lot more complexity, a lot more kind of potential flavors. You tend to get a bit more acidity as well, so you get more freshness even in a heavy wine. So this, by the way, Yasso as well. So this is from 40 to 100. There are some 100+ year old vines that go into this, and even 40 isn't exactly a baby, is it? And Yasso itself as well is part of a little group of three wineries. So, funnily enough, what I was talking about before, one of those is in Ribera del Duero, and that's kind of where the centre of their operation is. Viñas del Haro, and then Yasso was set up afterwards, and that's such a common story, you wouldn't believe. And then they also have one over in Priorat as well, which, as you mentioned before, Hannah, is the only other region aside from Rioja with the sort of highest mark of approval from the Spanish wine authorities. So yeah, and the same winemaker kind of goes between the three as well. So his influence is on all three, and you can sort of tell that when you try them actually. But this Yasso as well should be, again, it's still got it's still quite full. It's got a nice boldness to it, plenty of fruit. But there are some Toros out there that are, take this one to kind of 11 really, and they are a little bit too much. So this is just a measly 14.5%. Still high by most people's standards, but like I say, there's some crazy stuff that comes out of Toro. This is what they're all trying to kind of do now, is just tone that down a bit, get something that's a bit more drinkable, a bit more approachable. You can have a glass on your own. You don't have to have some ridiculously hearty meal just to stand up to it. 6 months in French oak with this one as well. Mostly new as well, so you do get a bit more kick of vanilla with this. Again, fruit's still the dominant character here, absolutely. But you do get some nice vanilla and kind of smokiness coming through as well.
This one, it's interesting looking at the feedback on it. There's, it's a really full-bodied wine. There's lots of like flavor intensity in there, and like the body, you can tell the alcohol's quite high on there, but as you say, the acidity's not lacking on it. And what's nice about it as well is the tannins aren't too big. So because with Tempranillo, you often find that with it being such a small grape and thick-skinned as well, and considering that Tinta de Toro is thicker skinned than Tempranillo and Rioja, you end up getting really you can get really kind of harsh tannin on there. So the tannin on that is kind of really, it's been nicely integrated into it. It's even though it's very high in alcohol, it's not harsh at all. And there's a few sort of comments saying like it's very kind of silky. And the one thing that I've seen as well is that when you first have it, it's very kind of vanilla-y, and the oak is quite kind of full on in there. But then it kind of dies off and it gets lighter as you drink more of it.
Sort of burns off, those kind of aromas come through first. I often find that as well, especially with the younger wines. like that vanilla just hits you straight away, and then actually it's not quite as dominant. It's come through. Yeah, there's plenty of kind of fine wine names coming out of Toro now as well. I think the probably most famous is Numantia and Timanthia, which is owned by LVMH these days. So people who like the Moet, the Clicquot, and Louis Vuitton and all that. There's a Toro wine to match, and then there's people like Vega Sicilia as well, who've got operations there. Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's a wine we should probably see a little bit more of, I think, over the time.
So with something like this, this is probably one of those that I would say to people to recommend kind of opening for a little while. How do you reckon that it's something that if you decanted it would kind of gel everything together really nicely, or do you think it's something that needs a little bit of open? Or
yeah, I think so. I think most reds can benefit from it. Like you know, if you haven't got time and you just want to open a bottle when you get home from a long day, don't worry about it. But if you can get something if you haven't got a decanter, a jug, anything will do it. I'm not, posh about these things. Just it will just open it up. If you think that even this, it's 2018, that's been in the bottle for over a year now. That's a long time to be kind of cooped up in there with kind of no interaction. So even a little bit of time in there, just airing out, just getting the oxygen to the wine will help and kind of deliver some of those extra aromas and things like that. So yeah, I think that goes for most wines, really, to be honest. Just getting messages from our guest. Actually, she's just having a little computer problem, but she's restarting it apparently.
No worries.
I will just message her back on seconds.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to see, and it's nice to see as well, actually, people enjoying this, because I think it's so easy to think of Spain and think of Rioja and then some of a kind of Priorat. I think that people kind of will go directly to mainly Rioja and then Priorat, but they wouldn't always look into kind of other areas. And it's also quite interesting to see how Tempranillo reacts, or how it kind of can make quite different wines. Because if you've compared this to, say, a younger Rioja, a 2018 Rioja, or a Crianza from Rioja, you tend to get, with this one, you've got lots of really lots of red fruit, lots of dark fruits like black currants and things like that, and lots of really bold flavors. But Rioja, you tend to get a much lighter style, and you tend to get more of the kind of like red fruits. So it's quite interesting to see how they compare. And we're talking about one variety of grape from two different regions, and they make two completely sort of different styles of wine. Which in a way is, I suppose, one of the not downfalls of wine, but one of the reasons why I think it can be such a confusing.
Oh God, yeah.
Huge.
People in the wine world don't make it any easier as well. Not independent merchants do make it a lot easier. Thank God for them, because you can go and chat to a human being and they can explain it. But but producers and things like that, and wine people who make wine law, don't make it easy.
Because Mike is currently studying. You're currently studying for your Master of Wine, aren't you? Still.
Yeah, I've it's been on a break for a little bit, but yeah, I started MW almost 2 years ago. Did stage 1, passed that somehow, and then I've just kind of been putting off stage 2 a little bit, to be honest. I think I was lucky enough to be offered the opportunity to do it. Kindly sponsored me off the back of diploma. I wouldn't have had the funds to do it myself, so that was really nice. But second year, I'm kind of on my own, really, so I sort of put it off a little bit, and then I'm kind of glad I did, because the exam would have been cancelled. It
Yeah.
was cancelled.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have, paid all that money out up front only for it to be cancelled. So,
Yeah.
and I can just take my time a little bit. I'm not in a rush. Mel from I think Hacker, that's our guess. Just saying she's going to try on her phone.
Yes, I can see her on the ready to add to the stream. So,
okay,
if everyone is ready to go ahead, I know that
introduce her when
I know this is quite a big wine, so don't feel like you have to drink. Obviously, if you'd like to drink them all in one go, that's not a problem. But don't feel like you have to drink them all in one go, because it is a big wine, and the next one we've got is great as well. So, yeah. Yeah. The next wine we'll be doing, if I pop the slide up for you, Mike, I'll let you introduce that one.
Brilliant. Is Mel on cue?
Yeah, she's on cue. So I'll let you introduce it, and I'll add her.
Yeah. So next one we've got is Finca Hapa Tinto from Rioja. So back to Rioja. So we've got a red Rioja, but this is certainly not typical. First of all, we're biodynamic here. I won't reveal too much because hopefully Mel will talk you through it. But a truly kind of unique Rioja with a unique story as well. Here we go.
Hello.
Hi, Mel.
Hello.
Hi. I'm having a hard time. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you see me? Okay, there.
Yeah, here loud and clear. Hi, Mel. It's Mike
okay,
here, and Hannah from StarmoreBoss.
Hello.
We're just on with.
Hi. Thank you for
having me. We've got a few customers signed in and listening as well, and we've got some lovely Finca Hapa Tinto here. So yeah, we were just hoping you could talk us through the wine, talk us through your story a little bit. And, while we enjoy your wine. I've got a little slide there, so that's just part of the tasting we're doing. So feel free to ignore that and or whatever you want to do. So
yeah, this is the one we've got.
Okay. Well, I hope everybody can hear me. I have a little feedback on my end, so not from my voice, but from what you're saying. But I'll continue, and you just stop me if things are unclear. Okay?
Sounds perfect on our end.
Yeah, we'll just stay quiet.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining, and thank you for having me. So pretty much, as you can hear, I am not Spanish. My husband is actually Spanish. His name is David San Pedro, and he is from the village where we live. It's Rioja, Alavesa, in a little village called El Villar. So he's a vine grower, and long story short, he back in 2000 started to do things different in the area and started to really try to focus on the village and where we are and the soils here and separating individual parcels and things like that. I didn't come into the pit. He was doing that in, like I said, 2000. I didn't come into the picture until 2000. Well, I didn't move to Spain until 2012. And I've always been a wine lover. That's actually one of the things that brought he and I together. And so it was easy for me to kind of come into this world of wine in that regard and leave what I had in the United States. But I've always been kind of a romantic at heart with a lot of things. And I'm going to give you maybe more backstory than you need. But if you're wondering why the label has this like Hawaiian look to it, is because before I moved to Spain, I was living in Hawaii, and I had a dog named Hapa. And Hapa in Hawaiian means mixed blood, more or less. A rough translation would be mixed blood. And that's because he was a shelter dog and I had adopted him. And I was single. I mean, up until the time that I married David and moved to Spain, I had been single for maybe 7 years, And so my dog was my child. And I was going through everything. He was 10 years old by this point, and I was going through all the paperwork to get him to Spain. And long story short, he passed away right before I left. Well, again, he was like my child for 10 years. And now I have 2 children, and it's different now. But in that time, it was very, very difficult for me. So, and he couldn't understand at that time. We were also still living in different countries, and he couldn't understand why I couldn't just get over it. And so he said one day, Melanie, to make me not so upset, Melanie, one day I'll make a wine in honor of Hapa. I was like, oh, okay, Well, in the end, I moved to Spain, and it took quite a while for that to happen. I kept saying, well, where is my Hapa wine? Where is my Hapa wine? And my husband does not come from wealth. That is not he came from a viticultural family. He came from a very, very humble beginning. And he actually only started with 1 hectare, bought 2 from his aunt anyway, without getting into too much backstory. So it's not like, he had all this established and had lots of money to just create things. And so he kind of reminded me of that. Melanie, you didn't marry a rich man. I can't just create things out of nothing. And so one day we were walking, and we came across this vineyard. And he knew it from his childhood, but it was new to me. And it was just, I fell in love with it. It has really chalky white soils. It's on a slope that's facing west. And I just fell in love with everything about it. And it also has to do a lot with, I love the way my husband makes white wines. It had a lot of white grapes in it. The soil was white and the dog was white. And he also was telling me a lot of the history of the vineyard, and it's built next to an old Roman road. And, me being an American, anything that has Roman, I'm like, it's hard for me to fathom something that old, and so all these things. And I just fell in love with this vineyard. And he had told me that, a lot of the vineyards, we're very fortunate here, especially in Rioja and in Rioja Alavesa, especially, because we still have a lot of old vines. This vineyard is not necessarily one of the oldest. It was planted in 1967. But he was telling me that when he was a little boy, looking out that direction, it was the only vineyard planted going up the side of the mountain, because at that time, they only planted vineyards going just, I guess you wouldn't say south, but maybe it's south of the village, heading down the slopes of the mountain towards the river Ebro, because they were worried about maturation of the grapes. But with climate change and all these things, and for whatever reason, the man that initially planted this vineyard, he must have been a visionary, because that was something that was unheard of. So in the end, these were wheat fields that they eventually turned to, that now you see are vineyards, but that wasn't the case when he was young. So I fell in love with the vineyard, and after that, I kept calling it my Hapa vineyard. And I always said, one day I'm going to buy that vineyard, and I'm going to make a wine. I'm going to make my Hapa wine. So I called it my Hapa vineyard forever, as a joke, really. And then I ran into the owner, and I told him, one day I'd love to buy your vineyard. And when I said one day, I meant in 20 years, because I too don't come from a wealthy family, unfortunately. And that was it. And then 2.5 years later, he called my husband out of the blue and said, I remember your wife, which is funny because he didn't seem the friendliest guy, nor did he seem smitten with me at all. But he remembered me and said, I remember your wife. And if she's still interested, she can make the first offer for the vineyard. And so I said to my husband, what are we going to do? Are we going to, we're going to buy this vineyard? I can't believe it's available. And he said, we aren't going to do anything because we don't have the money to buy this vineyard. If you want to buy it, you find the money and you buy it, and it can be, I'll help you make the wine. I'll help you with everything, but I can't financially help you. And, it'll be your wine and everything, but I'll help you get there, but financially I can't help you. So long story, I just took money from I had worked with corporations for, I guess it would have been almost 18 years at that point. And I had a lot of money saved up for my retirement. So I took out my retirement money and I just took a risk. Consulted with some people that are financially more savvy than me and said, is this a good idea? And they pretty much said, your husband's a winemaker. It's real estate, it's land, it's vineyards in Rioja. Yeah, I think you're safe to take your entire retirement savings and put it into this vineyard. So that's what I did. That's how it got started. And so the way we work, and this is not just with the vineyard that I purchased, but this is something that both my husband and I feel very deeply about, is tending to the land, being true stewards of the land. So prior to all this, another thing that actually brought my husband and I together was our philosophy of that. And he was working biodynamic before I knew him, and that's something that I always felt very strongly about as well. Or organic. It doesn't have to be biodynamic, but to me, that's just one step better, in my personal opinion. So we of course, for the first day, we never applied any chemicals, which is something that we would never do anyway. And we've been farming in that manner, biodynamically, since day one. And we also till all of our vineyards by horse. So we took over, and he, because I have more control, if they're my wines, not the wines that he's traditionally made in his winery that kind of have his signature, I decided I wanted to do something slightly different. I see that you have on this spontaneous fermentation, wild yeast. So while yes, again, everything in the winery is the same as all of our other wines. The major difference with this one is it has less time in barrel than some of our others. Still has 2 years, but without manipulating too much in the winery, he also tried to do something that he felt like was more my personality or the style of wine I like. So what we did with the actual winemaking process is we ferment the grapes whole cluster in a concrete tank. So more or less it's carbonic maceration for the fermentation that gives it that real fruit forwardness. And then once it's finished fermenting, once it's partially fermented, because it doesn't, when you do carbonic maceration for the ferment, it doesn't completely get to 100% fermentation. It doesn't completely finish the fermentation. So you have to press it. And then it finishes fermenting in 500-liter used oak. And then we put it in the 2017 vintage. We actually then blended it back together and then let it sit for almost a year in large oak vat. So what I hope that you see is generally this wine shows more fruit than some of our other wines. It has more like a wild berry type notes to it, sometimes a little spice as well. And so it was just to have more fruit forward, but oftentimes I'm not tasting the wine with you. So, but oftentimes one thing that if you ever taste the white hapa as well as the red, you'll notice in the mouth, the texture. Some people think it's a tannins, but we always feel like when we're tasting through, because oftentimes we'll taste through a lot of our wines together, but when you taste the Hapa Blanco and you taste the Hapa Tinto, oftentimes the texture is very chalky. And we always wonder if that goes back to, because if you look at this vineyard, I mean, it is white chalky soils. If you go all day after rain, it's not going to look that way. But if the soils are really dry and you go on a sunny day, that's when I fell in love with it. It was just white chalk at the top, where the white is planted. And then when you go down the slope a little bit, that's where the Tempranillo is planted. And that's where the red is. But we always feel that this wine has a slightly different texture than a lot of our other wines. So that's
Hannah,
the story. And I
put the next slide
talk
on.
nonstop.
I've got all three.
Excuse me?
Just click the next two. I've just loading up all three of the wines we've got actually there, because you were just mentioning the white there. And we've got Finca San Julian as well, the top one.
Okay, yeah.
Want to tell us about those?
I can explain a little bit. Sure. So as I mentioned, the reason I fell in love with this vineyard was because of a lot of the association with the white dog and the white soils and the white grapes, because that's one of the things I love is how and I also think it's oftentimes, well, almost always when people think of Rioja, they don't think of white Rioja, and it's really a shame. It's lost a lot of its history for that, but it's something that if they're made well, white wines in Rioja can be so interesting. And so I always love that my husband continued to make white wines in Rioja, and a lot of times the old vineyards still have a lot of white. You know, there are a lot of vineyards that went through the phase of they tore up all the white and they'd plant. It didn't matter if the vineyard called for 100% Tempranillo when the market called for Tempranillo and more Tempranillo, they planted. And this is where a lot of viticulture, the vine growing is sometimes lost because people, and I think things are changing. I hope things are changing in everywhere in the world, but especially here, that people are planting vineyards based on what is best for the vineyards. It still doesn't happen all the time, but at least you're not seeing 100% Tempranillo planted in an area because that's what the market calls for. Whenever we plant anything new, and if we have to plant anything new, we're looking at what's best for the area, what's best for the orientation, what's best for the future. We are always, actually in none of our new plantations do we ever plant Tempranillo, because we feel with climate change, if the acidity is going to go down, we're going to need something for blending that's going to really raise that freshness. And so we never actually plant Tempranillo, but I'm going off on a tangent here. Anyway, so I'll cut that. I have a tendency to go off on tangents.
I like it.
But so anyway, a lot of this vineyard had a lot of white grapes. And so anyway, that's something I think the history of Rioja, that's where I was getting to, is hopefully people don't forget that and they try. And like I said, because like anywhere in the world, you can find a lot of bad white Riojas, and you can also find really interesting, well done white Riojas. Now, the white Rioja that we make, the Finca Japa Blanco, it's of course a skin contact white. So if you ever try it, and if that's not something you're used to, of course, it's going to be more of an amber color, but that's on purpose because it's easy to explain the way the white is made, because it's made really almost exactly like the red. It's whole cluster fermentation in a concrete tank, sealed. And then once the fermentation is maybe around 70% finished, we press it. And then for the white, we put it into a foudre for a year. And that's where the wine ages for 1 year in a 2,700 liter foudre in the winery. So it's going to be more unique. It's going to be, I think, if you closed your eyes and tasted it, you might mistake it for a red. Yeah. If you didn't know it was actually a white wine. So it has the same texture I was talking about, but perhaps a little bit more structure. You could almost feel like the tannin coming through in the wine. That's it's something
that's
the Blanco.
We do actually have all three in store, and it's a really interesting and slightly different style of white Rioja that I think people are used to, but it is so well done, and there seems to be quite a lot of interest at the moment in orange skin contact wines, which is great. But I think sometimes people think of them as a little bit of a novelty, and I think sometimes people can think of them as being really quite kind of crazy and funky. But skin contact wine is something that's, it's very historic. It's something that makers were doing thousands of years ago. So it's not actually a new thing, and it's not meant to be done in a novel way. There's kind of reasons for doing it in that way, and there's benefits to doing it as well. And I think that the Finca Japa Blanco shows that really nicely. It doesn't kind of take it to a place where it splits people's opinions, where they go, "Oh, I don't think I'm keen on that. That's a bit crazy." It's definitely, it sits on what I'd call the right side of it. in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because that means a lot to me, because when we decided to make, I mean, our white wines always have a little bit of skin contact. No, I mean, my husband's been doing that for years. The funny part of the story was actually we were in New York City and speaking to David was explaining the wines to a sommelier there, and he was talking about another wine that he makes and saying, okay, so I make my white wines the same as the red, whatever. And this was in, I think, 2013 or maybe 2012, the same year I moved here. And the sommelier said, oh, so it's an orange wine. And my husband looks at me like I'm going to know what that is. And at the time I didn't know the term, and I'm looking behind, like, don't look at me. I don't know what that is. And we had to Google it on the way out. I'm like, oh, well, you do this all the time. So I think it's something that maybe is becoming more trendy now. And maybe with this wine, it did have a little bit longer time on the skins. But what we try to do is we don't want a wine that is so far out there that it's frankly hard to drink or undrinkable or, has so many flaws. We want a wine that is actually well made, but is a skin contact wine. So that's why if you notice, I didn't say orange wine. I usually, I'm very careful with that because me myself, I notice it. I don't usually ask for orange wine. I am totally fine, but there's something, this stigma in people's mind that so many people think orange wine, dirty. I don't want that. It's going to be funky. It's going to be dirty. And Hapa is not for everyone. I understand. It's not that it's funky or dirty. I hope that that's not what you find in it, but it's, if it's not your style, that's one thing, but at least it's a correct wine. It's not this weird, funky, dirty, type of thing. So it's something that if someone wants to try something new, maybe it's a good place to start. That you're not going to find any dirty type of notes in it.
I've had a few over the last couple of years, and I've never had a dirty or funky one. That's for sure. No. The 2018 actually is, which we've got now, is superb. Really, really good. Just wanted to tell us a little bit about Finca San Julian as well. That would be amazing because StarmoreBoss are big fans of this one. So
I think when we first tried it,
this one we make.
Wow.
There's a bit of a delay, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when I first tried it with Mike, I just put something like, wow, I want this wine in as a tasting note. Because sometimes when I taste wines, I have to make notes in them so I remember them. And then there's sometimes with wines that will stick out. And the San Julian was one of those that I was like, we need that in the shop. No questions asked.
Thank you. So San Julian is actually just outside of our village. It's actually in the village of LaGuardia next door to us. And at this time we were working on building the winery in the house. We live right next to the winery. And so we were living in a tiny little apartment in LaGuardia, and my husband always likes to bike and run and whatnot. And he found this vineyard one day that it was May, I think is what he said. I think it was May. And he came home. If we ever run into each other, any of you out there, you'll see my husband and I are kind of a interesting couple. And he comes home one day after riding his bike, and he said, like, Melanie, how much money do you have in that account? From me buying the Hapa Vineyard. And I know my husband, and I said, nothing. I have no money in that account. No, because it's true. I mean, I had saved money for paying taxes in the United States. I was like, I don't have any money. And he's like, you sure about that? I said, yes, I'm absolutely sure. I don't have any money for that. And he goes, well, I want to show you something. And then, then you tell me what you think. And he took me to the San Julian vineyard, and come to find out, it's a vineyard that, who knows, it's well over 100 years old, but it's on the side of a hill. So historically, especially in Rioja Alavesa, because especially where we are, there are so many hills that this is the story that was told to me, that back when Franco was in power, anything that was a flat land that you could use for planting wheat was used for wheat, not vineyards. And so all the old, really, really old vineyards were planted actually in the hillsides. So this is a perfect example of what probably a long time ago, over 100 years ago, what Rioja looked like. Because the reason the owners were they weren't actually selling the parcel. They were going to tear up the parcel, take the rights and move the rights to a flat, boring area because they were a traditional farmer, and you can access it by truck. It's not really a easy road to get there, but you can. But you can't get into the vineyard because the lines are so narrow, and the vineyard is on such a steep slope that you can't work it by a tractor. So everything they had to do was by hand. And so if they were applying chemicals or if they wanted to work the ground, everything had to be by hand. And it's a pain and especially you can imagine the production as a vineyard is very, very little. And you can imagine how much of a pain that is if you're actually selling grapes. It's something that's just not interesting. But for us, it was amazing. We were saying, okay, it's, we have horses and it's easy for them to work this land. And one of my favorite things about this vineyard, maybe one day we'll be able to rebuild some of the walls that are running through the vineyard. But everything is little by little. We have a lot of dreams, and dreams take time and money. But we'd like to bring at least a little bit back to its splendor. But what we have done is we've put posts on every vine, because oftentimes there is a lot of wind that comes through. And we maintained all of the trees in there. That's including almond trees. We have 3 or 4, I think, peach trees. There is another, I can't think of the name right now. There's another fruit tree. So we left all of the natural plants and herbs and everything in the vineyard. And there are just boulders around. It's quite a interesting picture of probably what Rioja looked like back then. So there are some vines in there that one is called, for example, it's called I can't think of it right now. It's Moscatel Rojo. When you look at it, it's like a pink grape, probably like what a Gewürztraminer grape looks like. It's that color. It's like so light. It's not your typical dark grape. And so there are some of these things that it calls to you. It calls to you and it says, I've been here a long time. So, but the interesting thing about this vineyard is it's east facing. So it gets that morning sun and it doesn't get the afternoon sun. So when we bought it, we thought it's going to be a very light wine. And in the end, it's such an anomaly, this vineyard, because it's always the first that we harvest. It's a fascinating vineyard in many ways, but you see, we changed the bottle shape for it because it's a little bit more powerful than the other wines, which you would never guess if you saw the vineyard. You would never guess that it would be what it is. You would never guess that it would have the structure and everything that it has. So with these, I think the vintage that we're in now, we just bottled the 18, but I think the vintage that you have there, I think it was 990 bottles or something. So that's a very limited production wine. I think this year it's 1,120 bottles. And then for 2019, maybe around 1,000. And then this year, it's one barrel. Literally, it'll be half the production. It'll be maybe 500 bottles. So, but it's definitely a beautiful, beautiful vineyard, and the grapes are that as well. So that's my San Julian, and that actually we use new barrel.
I was just going to ask, does that spend more time in oak as well, the San Julian, or than the Hapa?
Actually, no. In the 2017, no. It spent maybe a year and a half. So actually a little bit less time. But maybe what you're feeling there is it's new oak.
Okay.
But I don't really usually like to talk about barrels, but with this wine, what we do is we buy these barrels they're called rare. Well, it's probably called rare. I'm used to my husband saying everything, and it was with the Spanish accent. So, but it's a very well-known, very regarded barrel maker, and so we usually put this wine in new oak every year. That's not something that we do for all of our wines, but when we feel that it's appropriate, we do it. So we think it balances out this wine quite well.
Yeah.
Very good. Well,
So that's what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a fantastic wine. I mean, they all are, but that, yeah.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. So, yeah.
Well, you guys, everybody will have to come when the borders open again. You'll have to come, and I can, rather than hearing about it on the phone or a little face on your computer, you can actually come and
sooner than
visit
later,
them and see them for yourself.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mel. I know you're.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mel. I know it's 10 p.m.
Thank you.
and you're clearly at the winery as well. So we'll.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I live next door, so it's okay.
All
right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, Mel.
See you later. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
But yeah, it's the San Julian is fantastic. I mean, these ones are, when we're looking at kind of price wise, they're a little bit more expensive. So the Finca Happer we have on the shelf at $27.95, which obviously is, you know, quite expensive. The San Julian is about $57.95, so not particularly cheap. But you know, if you're looking for something really special, and you know, if you're want to cellar as well, I think it probably would sell it pretty well. So yeah,
complete with wax top as well. That's got to be worth a tenner.
Yeah, that's true.
Really good wines. That was great with Mel to come on and explain it far better than I could as well.
Yeah. Had some good feedback saying they really like Mel.
Good, yeah.
Great. So it's good to have that.
They're fantastic for us to work with, for sure. And I mean, we obviously talk about these to everyone, but with them being, you know, slightly up there, getting we tend to find most customers are like, wow, they're incredible, and they'll take maybe one on, maybe two at a push to give a go, and they, you know, kind of cycle through them. They'll find people who that'll be all they'll drink after they've tried it. But StarmoreBoss, one of a handful of customers actually take all three as well. So you're
I can see two on the shop at the moment up here, and then I know the other one's down at the other shop as well. So
Mel would love to make a trip to Sheffield if she comes over, I'm sure. And
well, maybe eventually we'll actually be able to get Melanie in here, because the idea of this shop was to have winemakers in and we can talk through the wines and stuff. And
we'll get there
one day.
One day soon, sure. Brill. I'm aware we're getting on for time a bit. I wondered if anyone wanted to try a bit of sherry to finish off, and I'll leave everyone to enjoy their evenings after that. But if you wanted to just sort of pop up there, if you wanted to know more about those Finca wines, you can go to, quite easily remember our website. It's called strugglingvines.com, actually. It's just on the left.
There we go.
Yeah, strugglingvines.com. So you can find out even more. We'll try some sherry. Just flip next one. Sherry, also, you know, like Rioja, sherry is a region rather than a grape or a style. All of it down in the south, on the Andalusian coast, not too far from the Gibraltar Strait there. And sherry has got just a very kind of mixed history in terms of, well, it goes back a long way, first of all. Has a bit of a reputation as something Nan drinks. But I think that's something that is gradually changing as people discover, weirdly, more traditional styles. Because I think the thing that made sherry big maybe 30, 40 years ago was cream sherries generally, your Bristol's, Harvey, things like that. But that's a tiny, tiny part of what sherry does, and people are starting to branch out a bit more. And actually, most sherry styles are actually really dry. So you've got your finos, amontellados, olorosos. They kind of three basic styles, and then branching off from there, you've got manzanilla and palo cortado. All of these are really dry styles and all kind of different. You've got the fresh, kind of nutty style of fino, and really deep, kind of like raisiny, dark, dried fruits of things like oloroso. We're going to go completely other end scale though and try some Pedro Jimenez, which for me is the best dessert wine in the world. So Pedro Jimenez sherry. So Pedro Jimenez is the grape. It has been made 100% from that grape, and actually a lot of the Pedro Jimenez made grown to make sherry is grown just outside the sherry region, further inland. And good reason for that is actually when they harvest the grape, they lay it out in the hot sun to dry. So you don't want to be too close to the coast, where it's a bit cooler and a bit windier. So to be planted quite further inland. So they're harvested and then they're just left out on straw mats or whatever they've got to dry. It's obviously very hot, even in September time when they're harvested. So basically all the water content in the grape evaporates, the grape raisins up, and you're just left with far more concentrated flavors and, importantly, far more concentrated sugar as well. So when you come to start making the wine out of that, it's impossible to make a dry wine, first of all. So you'll ferment and you'll be left with this really kind of lusciously sweet, naturally sweet, sweet wine. And then, as with all sherries, it will then go into the Solera system. Very complicated system that I won't go through all the time, but basically what it does is allows the wine to age, it allows it to develop more complex flavors, and it produces a consistent product year after year after year. So it doesn't matter what the vintage is in sherry, really, although it's sunny, it's 300 days of sunny year anyway. But because of the Solera system, it wouldn't matter if they had a terrible year. They're allowed to, they kind of fractionally blend between years until they've got a kind of average age product, a bit like with a whiskey. So, a 10-year-old isn't from the year from 10 years old, it's from a few years. So hopefully you're all enjoying some PX there. And I think the first thing you'll notice is how intense the thing is, how treacly, raisiny it is on the nose. And then also on the palate, just how kind of lusciously sweet it is. But that sweetness is balanced with plenty of acidity and plenty of flavor as well. You struggle to find a more concentrated wine, even in the color as well. It's really deep, kind of brown. If you give it a bit of a swirl in the glass, notice how that kind of sticks to the side, and that's the sugar that's kind of gripping that side there as well. It's not a wine I would drink more than kind of almost like 25-50 mils of on its own. It is a dessert wine, and it's made to go with sweet desserts, the best of which is ice cream. And I thought I'd heard about this match years ago, and it's even poured over ice cream, not just drank alongside it, but poured over it. And I thought that was one of those weird English people had kind of bastardized a little bit and made their own. But no, it's very traditional actually. It's something you do in Spain. They get ice cream and they pour PX sherry over it all over Spain, not just confined to the sherry region as well. So I'm kind of quite pleased to see that, learn that was quite authentic as well. And it is a beautiful match as well. It just kind of it's basically the syrup, if you like, to an ice cream. But goes really well with chocolate, things like that. Chocolate cake.
I feel like it would be great with Christmas cake.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you just click once now, Hannah, I think it'll actually come up with Christmas in a glass. Yeah, and it is, and that was always how I used to describe it when I was in a well-known wine retailer before this, and that was kind of always how I described PX Sherry on the run up to Christmas to customers. And you know, we would sell 95% of the PX Sherry we sold in November and December. It's not one you'd go jump to in June, to be honest, when it's maybe 25 degrees, nice or not. But it's a lovely winter warmer. So Christmas pudding. This producer as well, DF Marito, so they've been around for a long time. We at Moreno started working them not too long ago, actually, only about 3 years ago, but they do some really, really good shows and really reasonably priced as well. What's this one on the shelf?
$14.95.
Yeah, and that's for the amount of work that goes into sherry is like beggars belief. How time consuming they are to make. I can't imagine that sherry producers make a lot of money, to be honest. There's just so much that goes into them. And especially with being hammered by reputation over the last 10, 20 years. But yeah, DF Marito, brilliant producer. They do a whole range, so they do all those styles for us. They do a cream sherry if you love that kind of thing as well. And they've got a kind of fine and rare range as well called Bertola. Obviously a bit small money, but a highly kind of awarded range of sherries.
I think it's interesting. Sherry, people do associate sherry with being like the old, you know, like your grand's favorite drink or something. But it was actually Sherry Week last week. The idea of that is to bring people into this kind of introduce them to sherry and the different kind of styles and different things as well. And what's really interesting is that sherry is one of those that literally covers a whole range. So you get the really like the bone dry sort of styles that Mike was saying about, like the Finos, right through to this. And some of these can be really sticky sweet. But the thing I like about this is that it is very sweet, but it's not too sweet. It's not. And the thing that I actually got on it when I didn't try it, when I tasted it the other day, I didn't get, but now I've got it in my glass. It has like a slightly coffee-like finish on it, and a bitterness on there. And we've got a couple of different sherries as a different PX that we have that is really, really syrupy, and it almost like feels like it clogs your mouth up a little bit, which is, you know, some people really like, and it's great for really rich desserts. But this is nice that it's just got a little bit more freshness. And yeah, that when I was trying it, then I was like, wow, that really just tastes like that kind of like just a hint of coffee on there.
Absolutely. Nice. You get so many flavors out of these types of wines, and and like that freshness, just a really good level of like acidity in there as well. And acidity, not a word to be scared of as well. We talk about it in cooking, and it's the same thing with wine as well. It basically just adds freshness. If you were to have a wine or even a meal without any acidity, you'd soon notice it'd be very very flabby, and actually you wouldn't notice the flavors as much either. So that's also not a word to be scared of when we talk about wine. I
think it's quite easy as well to confuse acidity with like a sharp feeling. So you know, you try certain wines and you get that quite sharp, almost astringent type of acidity in the mouth, and you think, oh, that's really acidic, that's really over the top. But actually, if it's done nicely, you can get stuff that's really high in acidity that just sits nicely in balance with everything. I think this gives a really nice balance on it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we've always got a bottle of this in for Christmas, or two. So yeah.
Had a few people that have said they've got the ice cream out, and they said it's great with.
Oh, brilliant! Well prepared.
And
oh, they've just ran off when the slide came.
But my dad actually said that he could imagine it with rum and raisin ice cream, which
that'd be
cherry. That's probably
good.
Triple
good match on the raisins there. Sure.
So yeah,
Raisins, wine.
It's an interesting one. So
yeah,
and mint chocolate chip as well, apparently.
Any ice cream, I think.
But
yeah, I guess mint would bring even more freshness. That'd be a good one to try.
Through it, but yeah, cherry is one of those things that I think people they get a bit scared of almost, and they're a bit like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I remember first time I tried one was Tio Pepe, so like a Fino style. That was maybe 8 years ago, something like that. And I hated it, absolutely hated it. But like I came back to it about a year later, and I thought, not sure. Another year, I was like, oh, actually, it's quite nice now. I think I've spoken to quite a few people who've had exactly the same experience, so I think it'd be a shame if people tried it once. It's not one you need to try it a few times. And maybe that's just my palate maturing, but I think it is one that more than any other wine grows on you. Really encourage people to maybe haven't tried it for a few years, try it again. Don't like it, fine, but keep giving it a go.
I think it's like the kind of oxidation on it. I think sometimes because of the way that they make sherry as well, you get a lot of those kind of like flavors coming through, and that I think can sometimes put people off a little bit. But I think
it's not like anything else.
A glass of Pinot sherry or Manzanilla sherry with like some almonds or some like snap, like olives and stuff, it's fantastic. It's really lovely.
We see quite a few bars now that a lot more bars that are offering that. There's a place in Manchester where I am called Flock that do that really well. Seems to be a bit of a trend. Nice glass of Fino and some nuts.
But I think we're now at the end of
I can't remember what popped in then. If
anyone has any questions, please do let us know. I can put them forward. What was everyone's favourite? I know we've done quite a range of stuff, so it's not that you can do a sort of direct comparison of things. But yeah, there's some really interesting bits in there, and hopefully as well we've kind of showcased there's a little bit more to Spain than what's sort of known in the mainstream, and even the more mainstream regions as well, like Rioja, the Finca is something different from that region. Not something you always tend to see there as well. So
just to confuse the waters even more, even the classic regions doing everything classically. It's an endless world, endless country of wine as well.
I do. We've had someone that's may have had a glass of Manzanilla as an aperitif before the tasting, so they're really getting into the Spanish.
Brilliant, good.
Theme
Yeah.
And, it is a fantastic country for winemaking. Like we said, it's very, very diverse. And, still an old world country as well.
And like say, there's 6 great varieties. So what have we tried there? About 7 or 8 of those great varieties involved in there. So,
It's seems to be quite a few different bits and pieces that come through. That people like. So kind of number one is this one, the Adoras is a quite easy drinking, but easy drinking style white, and then number 2 is a sort of a dinner pairing one. I think number 4 is the Finca Hapa's come out quite high as well. I think that's probably my favourite out of them.
It's a hell of a wine, isn't it? It's good that way people tasted it actually as well. You mentioned about decanting before. Obviously, those samples have been decanted. that is a wine that definitely, and pointed to it because it is just there. But that is a wine that definitely benefits from
Yeah.
a time out. So and people have got that ready made with this system, so that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the good thing about it, I suppose, because if we were to do this in a kind of normal tasting, we'd open it and pour it, and then it might take a little bit of time to come.
Yeah.
As well, and particularly with some of the more with them farming biodynamically and not kind of putting too much intervention into the winery and things like that, you will find that some of those wines as well can be a little bit more, I guess, unstable, or you might open it and then sort of it will just need a little bit of time to come around. So yeah, it has had a little bit of time to just sort of relax into itself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we've had a couple of people that say they really like it's very mixed. Like people really like the Akemi, the White Rioja, the Toro as well. So yeah, it's been quite a mixed bag really. So yeah, some interesting wines.
Different palette.
So yeah. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed as well. If there are any questions, please do ask if you think of anything. I've got another. You can see the region of Spain, and you can also see as well that you can actually see the mountain range slightly on it, which does kind of
pulled out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see it down to the sea on all sides as well. That's kind of a big flat bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope everyone has enjoyed. And yeah, Moreno wines have got some really good stuff that we take from them, and yeah, we've nicely stocked up for Christmas, or we will be for a lot of it as well. So yeah. Well, lovely. I hope everyone's enjoyed.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for joining us as well, Mike.
No, thanks for having me. Enjoyed this. It's been good. Well, like I said, still so much to show from Spain. So if people can simply ping a load more wines in, and more bits, some more regions, some more grapes.
Yeah, it'd be good to do a few more bits and pieces. And yeah, I'm glad that it's gone well with the wines as well. I was slightly worried opening them and pouring them that they might not be okay, but we made sure we kept them all in the fridge. Even the reds as well, which I know some people will probably be like, why have you kept the reds in the fridge? But it just stops any chance of them going off. So no, glad they've all got to everyone okay, and everyone's enjoyed them as well. Yeah, and lovely. If you are interested in any of the wines, do let us know. We have all of them in stock at the moment, and we can get hold of them quite easily as well. The turnaround time's not long at all. So yeah, excellent. And then if you have any questions that you want to ask or anything, or if you want to go back and rewatch it, you can rewatch the stream. But yeah, do let us know. We can always happy to help. So lovely. But I think we'll probably leave it there now, because I realise we're getting on for about 2 hours now.
Oh God.
So yeah. It's very easy to get carried away chatting, but then I have to say, if I've done it on my own, it does get to a point where I just think I need to stop talking. So, but yeah. Anyway, thanks very much everyone for joining.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Hannah.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye.